So, hey guys, it's Neil, and as you read in the title, this is the Uni of Nottingham Motorsport Club event at Daytona Tamworth. It's a track I've never been to actually, and it's my second ever real life race, so yeah, let's get straight into it. Heading out to the pit lane for the first time, it's actually quite a wet track, and very cold as well, so it had been raining the entirety of the day. It had just dried up, it stopped raining by the time we arrived, but we have to find the limit pretty quickly, so flat out through the first corner, immediately on the grass. Trying to adjust my visor a little bit to get it down without it fogging up. Then I arrive at turn 2, which is a flat out corner normally, but then I see this wall of karts, so I have to brake and I spin on the brakes. So in this quick session where I have to find the limit, I've already had 2 off tracks, which is great. But yeah, like I said, it's a very wet and cold track, so you have to find the limit really quickly because you basically only have a 10-minute session. As you can see, someone's spinning off on the left because of how cold and wet it is. There was absolutely no grip at all. So in this quick 10-minute quote-unquote qualifying session, we had to find the lines, find the overtaking spot, find where the grip is on the circuit, all while it's wet and the air temp, it was overcast, so the air temp and track temp will be about equal, and it was 12.5 degrees Celsius if I remember. So yeah, completely new track to me, absolutely no grip at all, and I have to try and qualify it. So basically the format of the day was 10-minute qualifying session, 20-minute race. There were 48 of us who showed up, and we were randomly allocated into 2 qualifying groups. And as you can see, having my first spin of the day, flinching a little bit, taking my hands off the steering wheel in case my front wheels get knocked, and that hurts my wrists, even though that can't happen in these closed wheel karts. I guess it's just an instinct thing, but yeah, like I said, 10-minute qualifying, 20-minute race. We got divided in half randomly for our qualifying group, so I went out in the first half, which meant that we had the wet track, so randomly, no matter what we did, we were just slower, like even just on natural pace, we were slower than the people who went out in the second group because we were drying it out for the second people. But as you're about to see in this qualifying session, it really sort of didn't matter what the track was because I didn't get even one single lap without a yellow flag. So if you've ever watched racing before or even done any yourself, you know that in qualifying, if you get a yellow flag, your lap, that's game over, your lap is over because you have to lift off and you have to slow down. You basically lose the lap. So basically what I've noticed about this kart is that it really didn't suit my driving style, but in a very strange way. It didn't necessarily have bad characteristics, it was just bad everywhere. But as you can see throughout this entire, as you will see, I do adapt to it, and I think I drive pretty well by the end. Anyway, getting another yellow flag into the final corner, I set up a really long exit to get the best exit onto the straight, and I'm going for my first flying lap attempt. Proper flying lap attempt, flat out through the first corner, having a bit of mid-corner oversteer. Now through turn 2, I guess it could call, this is really turn 2, because this entire thing was just a curvy straight. Flat out through this corner as well, right up to the white line. Leaving a couple of millimeters, then a huge entry oversteer on the first braking zone. I was seeing a lot that the rear tires didn't really have much grip, and on the weight transfer itself of braking, I would get oversteer. Meeting the apex of this uphill left-hander, but still getting 3-4 snaps of oversteer, and then I scrubbed too much speed. You see the shake of the head, I knew that was lap over at that point. So one lap I've had so far, which is quote-unquote clean, and I lost it, which is entirely my own fault. And as you can see, I just went on that green moss. If you notice, I'm sorry for the toaster quality if you can't notice, but the tarmac on the outside of that corner there was a bit green, and that was actually moss on the circuit due to the moisture. So it was really slippery on that moss. And that was once again another loss of time. So I'm pulling up to the last corner again. Of course there's a yellow flag, that's just how it works. But there's another car just parked on the apex for me to try and get around. So yeah, great exit. But I thought, whatever, I mean, a lap is a lap. So once again, flat out through this corner, going down the straight. And I started to think in my mind, let me start pushing a little bit more. Let me start, as you can see, fully flat out through this corner. But I'm catching up to traffic a little bit here, so I start trying to push the entry of this corner a little bit more, using the brake pedal to try and get some rotation, but it didn't quite work. Tried to use this curb on the exit and it was sort of fine, but I really got caught up on the exit by this guy. And taking a quick glance behind, I decided maybe I should try and get myself a gap to get a good qualifying session in. But I quickly realized that wasn't really a viable idea, so I switched my focus on this point. I of course tried to do clean, consistent, quick laps, but instead of that really being my focus, I approached it more like a free practice session. So like you saw, I just went for the overtake, even though that's not optimal for lap time. I just thought, okay, I can't do this track in the sim. It's not usual for me to be racing a track where I can't do any simulation runs before I go. So I will try and treat this session like a simulation run. So if I go side by side with someone, of course another yellow flag in the last corner, that should go without saying at this point. But yeah, if I go side by side with someone, I need to try and find the ways to overtake, try and train my racecraft, warm that up a little bit. But yet I'll still be pushing for the rest of the lap. So as you can see from my horrendous mid-corner oversteer through turn 1. Coming through turn 2, I'm still taking it flat, even though you really shouldn't in these conditions, but I'm obviously always hungry to try and find where the limit is in this short session, so that I can know how much I can push without and still get away with it. And so yeah, anyway, catching up to a yellow flag with this absolute wall of cars, I'm gonna try immediately to try and think of how to overtake. As you see my friend Nasri in the Ferrari suit overtaking us with the momentum he had. I'm gonna try and see if I can send one down the inside here, or maybe in the next corner, or really where the grip is. Because sometimes in racing, geometrically the outside line may look possible, but it may not be because of just like maybe there's mass on the outside of the corner, that kind of thing. And in this circuit, the camera doesn't really do it justice, but there was a lot of elevation change. It went uphill, downhill a lot, and there was a lot of camber in the corners. And when I say camber, I specifically mean off camber. So which means the entire track is tilted away from the corner. So unless you're holding it very tight, yellow flag again in the last corner, don't even need to say this anymore. I will set up a good exit again and try again, but I'm not hopeful. If the track is off camber, that means the gravity itself is pulling you away from the apex, so it's really difficult to hang a move around the outside, even though geometrically and pace-wise it might be possible otherwise. But yeah, heading on to my 4th or 5th lap at this point, who even knows, like, I'm running right up to the white line. I think, okay, this might be the lap I go for, but immediately on the exit, I'm just catching up to all these cars. Like, I could really tell that a lot of people in the session didn't know how to prioritize the exit of the corner. As you can see, this guy pushing me absolutely wide as I try to overtake. So I switched into race mode at this point, trying to get a double switchback on both of them coming into this uphill right-hand sweeper. And I get the move done and I'm unleashed to drive on my own now in a bit of clean air. There was a car ahead, if you can just glimpse it on the top of the screen, but he was, I think, a little bit quicker than me, and he was pretty much out of my way anyway. I was in clean air at this point. What is tricky about the final corner of this track is that the braking zone of the final corner bleeds into the exit of the penultimate corner, which means unless you keep the platform flat and you nail the weight transfer, you can, if you hit the brakes wrong coming into this corner, you just spin, like so. And what I mean by this, weight transfer isn't always the most intuitive thing to understand to non-racing drivers, I guess, not to call myself a racing driver, but to non-racing drivers, it's a little bit hard to comprehend. So basically what I mean is, say you're turning right in a car. You can feel your entire body being pulled to the left, right? Because your body wants to continue in a straight line, even though your car is turning. Basically that happens to the car itself. So if you're turning right, then more weight or more load is placed on your left-hand tires. What that means is, there's not really that much braking potential left. So you're using up too much of the potential of your tires in turning the car and not leaving enough of it to slow it down, which means you'll be coming into that corner really hard, turning left on the penultimate corner. Then as you hit the brake, there'll be too much lateral load left in the car and it'll spin around. There won't be enough grip left in one of your rear tires and it won't maintain traction. So I think that's one of the places where my personal strength of having a lot of knowledge of racing and how to drive race cars, even though I don't have much experience, like I said, it's my second race ever, I know about weight transfer, I know how to manipulate it, and I had a decent feel of it, even though I hadn't actually done it in real life. So that was one of my main strengths in the race. I was catching up to drivers who were ahead of me and just being really much superior to them on the braking for this final corner, and just generally having better exits everywhere because I knew how to manipulate the weight transfer of the car. So now is when I think, okay, it's finally time for me to do my lap. Ducking my head down on the straight to get a couple extra, maybe one extra kph in drag. Pulling up to this guy, taking a compromise line, but it doesn't really matter. I thought, okay, fine, I'm going to push all the way out to the runoff on the exit, since technically in qualifying that is allowed. So I went all the way up and it's so bumpy. As soon as I land, I get an oversteer on the straight. Like it was that bumpy. I had to counter steer, full opposite lock on the straight. So the problem with that is, because it's so bouncy, even when you come off, the oscillations are still running through your car. There is no shock absorbers on a kart, so the vibrations don't get reduced at all. They have to run through the entire thing until they dissipate naturally. So even after I came off that bouncy curb, I was still bouncing, and after I landed, it was just spinning the car around on its own. And I saved it, but still, it's yet another piece of information that I would have to log in my brain to make sure I didn't do that in the race, because that could be very risky. So yeah, as I said earlier, this was my third ever real life race at Tamworth, and for a summary of how the first ever race went, it was at PFI, which is one of the coolest circuits in the world, if I may say so myself. And my basic main weakness was that I just wasn't strong enough. I just could not handle the physical aspect of driving a kart fast. it was pretty clear, like if you talked to me and watched what my race was, that I could handle the mental aspect and the knowledge on how to drive a race, but I just physically couldn't handle it. And even though the track conditions here meant there was less grip, the extremely cold temperatures and hard tires we were racing on basically made it so that there was a lot of chattering. And chattering is basically a type of understeer, I guess you could call it, where the tire suddenly has a lot of grip and then no grip, and a lot of grip and then no grip. So in that rhythm of like grip and grip, grip and grip, grip and grip, it makes like an sound. So you can, I'll play a replay of it just now on the screen so you can see what that looks like. And every time that happens, it's like, every time it grips up, it'll shake you around even more and more, and it's so difficult in your cart to actually just hold yourself into the cart. And of course, if you're an experienced driver watching this, you'll be like, oh yeah, of course it's easy, like it's fine, this is nothing, this is just a rental cart. But for someone who's like me, who's a sim racer, who's done a lot of quote-unquote racing, but never actually physically experienced that, it's quite difficult to take. So basically my goal for this entire season was, after having such a tough showing at PFI, I would go home, just do some physical training, get myself stronger, and I would show up at the next race and do my best. But my goal for the entire season was to get at least one podium. And I think I could do that. I was quite confident that it was possible for me to do that if I just got physically strong enough. So, pulling up into the pits at the end of the session, let's just take a quick summary of how it was. So we have one yellow flag, and then another yellow flag along with traffic, and then we have another yellow flag, and then we have another yellow flag, and then on top of that another yellow flag with traffic this time. And then we have another yellow flag, and then we have, I guess this is actually my own spin, it was a yellow but it was caused by me, and then we have more traffic, and then after that, to top it all off, we have another yellow flag, and then we have another yellow flag. So as you can see, the session was not the cleanest session I've ever had in my life, but yeah, I did try my best in the end of the day, so let's see what I had to say about it at the end of the session. Okay, I don't know if anyone can hear me, but it's fucking freezing out here. And my hands, they're like, oh my god, like holding onto the steering wheel through these fast corners. Understeer is so difficult because it's like, and it's hard to hold on. But like honestly, I'm really glad because I can really tell that I'm much stronger than I was at PFI last month, and I can hold myself in through fast corners, and I just feel fucking great, you know. Like I'm really glad I am how I am right now. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, I qualified P10, I think, which is not optimal, but I'm sure you also, there's literally not a single green flag lap all the way throughout, and then I got a VSC at the end, so it's whatever, you know, it's racing. We'll see what we can do on the first lap. So it seems like the second split went really fast, because the track was sort of dried out by us running around. So I really hope I get sorted into the slower split, because then I have a chance of actually taking a dub. It's not gonna happen, but well, actually, fuck it, I believe. Somehow I've managed to qualify in third place for the B final, so I'm about to head out right now.
Imagine only being in the B final, loser!
Imagine being last, Lamau. Okay, anyway. So there we are then, sat on the grid in P3 for the B final. During the wait in between sessions and the time they took to tabulate the results of qualifying, my friend Nasri, who was in the Ferrari suit earlier, as I showed, he said, well, you're in P3, so you have to win now. So yeah, no pressure at all. But to be honest, that wasn't even really in my mind. I was just thinking, okay, I just wanna drive consistently. You know, I just wanna go out there and make sure I leave everything on the track, and I don't sort of waste the chance I have to race. You know, because it's expensive to do this race. It costs £50 for me to do. So I wanted to make sure I was spending the money well. So as you can see, the last of the grid reforming at the back, P24 joining, and I'm still sat there in P3, zooming in, looking at the camera, giving it a quick glance, and I tapped the throttle, not quite enough to move me out of my grid box though, and there we are on the first person camera. The start light wasn't working, so the race would start when the guy waves the green flag, and the green flag is dropped and we are underway. Ducking my head down, not the greatest getaway, P2 and P1 getting a better launch, but it sort of worked out in my favor because otherwise I would have had to lift coming into turn 1 and that would have ruined my run and probably lost a couple of positions by the time I got to turn 2. Now, completely doing quite a big lift actually through turn 3 because I knew the tires were really cold. Taking a middling line with just a bit less than a cart's width on the inside because I didn't want to get muscled out of the way, but still you can see I just get completely forced wide onto that curb by the person in P3 now, losing the podium position, trying to hang it in there, getting 1 snap, 2 snap, 3 snaps over, we're still going side by side with him, having a quick check to see if he's still there, trying to just turn in, but you can see the car just is not in the window at all. It's really not cooperating with what I want to do. He takes the position and I lose the podium position. So now I'm still trying to apply pressure, I'm still trying to keep myself in this window, but I'm noticing now my visor is fogging up like crazy. I was having a really hard time with visibility, but still pushing as hard as I can. Right now, giving it absolutely everything. The car's still not really cooperating with what I'm doing. Coming into the left hand, I'm putting a nose down the inside. And there you go, I just gained the position back and I'm back onto the podium for the race. And now my focus is just trying to pull away from this guy behind, because the main issue right now is visibility. I pulled away from, I knew I had the pace on this guy behind because I out-qualified him, or at least that was my internal thought. But I couldn't see anything, right? So that was what the main issue was. And as you can see, I was noticing I was really quickly catching up to this guy in P2, running it absolutely onto the grass. You can see how much I'm pushing on this lap too. Breaking into this corner, leaving quite a decent bit of margin actually, because I knew I could not afford to have even one snap over Vistia that was enough to lose me any speed. I could not afford to scrub any speed because that guy would just take the position back. Now pulling into the inside of this uphill right-hander, braking, getting the move down so cleanly, it was clear that I was just better on the exit of the final corner, and really better everywhere. I was catching him in every phase. Now the focus was down to getting back some visibility. I was having a really hard time seeing, but I was sort of I could distinctly remember at this point of the race having sort of my right eye fogged up but my left eye being okay. So my focus was sort of assessing what the kart ahead was like, but also trying to regain focus on myself. But yeah, as you can see, the kart really not cooperating, getting four-wheel sliding all the way from mid to exit, as colliding with the outside wall on the main straight, start-finish straight. Opening my visor, as you can see it peeking out into the camera a little bit. Now the air was so cold, you would not believe. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine it was about 11 degrees at that point, and I'm just getting blasted by this, like, on this straight because of my poor exit. I would have been going about 70 kph, blasted by this air. I couldn't see anything. I put the visor back down and it was again fogging back up. So I was having a really hard time. So if I opened the visor, I would have to close my eyes because the airflow is too fast. Whereas if I closed my visor, it would fog up and I couldn't see anything anyway. So this was a bit of a dilemma I found myself in. Luckily, I seemed to have significantly better pace than the car behind. So I wasn't really at risk of getting overtaken, not that I think I was. But what I was noticing that I was slowly but surely catching up to the car ahead, even though I wasn't really paying that much attention. If I'm entirely honest, I wasn't really paying attention to driving, yet I was catching him. You can see him sort of appearing in the top of the screen every now and then. And you can see in this corner, like I mentioned earlier, because of the platform management, it's quite tricky, but I'm catching up to him like crazy on the braking, and I sort of had a better exit everywhere I went. So look how close I am now on this lap compared to the last one. Flat out through this first corner, running it right up to the grass on the exit. Now I'm pushing. I think that last lap was my fastest lap, but let's take you through a lap here. Flat out through the first corner, now through this curvy straight, flat out through this corner as well, but leaving a decent bit of margin because there's no need to run it up to the grass. It's just going to lose you time. Leaving a tiny bit of margin on the braking over here, but not too much. Getting the rotation using the brake pedal, running it half your kart on the curb over there, turning and using a little bit of curve to pull your car into the corner up here. This corner trying to use as much entry as possible despite there being a little bit of moss. 2-3 snaps on entry. Still managed to get the rotation I need without scrubbing as much speed. This corner is really off camber, really difficult. You can see the car just washing wide, but I still managed to get it done. And this corner doesn't really matter that much because it's completely flat out. It's not really possible to lose much time. Now comes to the hairpins. You can see meeting the apex quite nicely over here. Now braking for the turn, I guess 8 or 9 would be the second hairpin. Now coming up to the penultimate corner, you can see how much I'm catching up to the car ahead, and there's a yellow flag, so I couldn't really do much. I had to lift off, setting up a really long exit onto the straight. And of course going to be absolutely flat out through the first corner, which I wasn't really convinced this P1 car was doing. I'm catching like crazy on the exit. I pull out of the slipstream to try and stick a nose up the inside, which is sort of a habit from sim racing. It wouldn't have worked here because there's no mirrors. He doesn't know I'm there. And once again, not really able to try anything on the brakes into this corner because there's a yellow flag. So there's once again trying to reiterate, when you're on the yellow flag, you have to slow down and you can't overtake. So that's what the main issue is here. So now I'm still getting a little bit impatient here because I see how much quicker I am. So I'm just gonna hound him on every single corner, just stick right up his gearbox. I guess this cards don't have a gearbox, but you know what I mean, right on his tail, going side by side with him. We're starting to lap people here. Now I'm gonna be on the left of the back marker as he has a half spin, collecting me a little bit, which allows the guy in P1 to hang his speed around the outside, and I do not get to gain this position. So that was a bit unlucky lapping the P24 card. But I still didn't lose much time from it. There's still plenty of time in this race. Only lap 5 out of 19, and see how close I am on the braking in this corner. I decided to set up an exit again, losing time on the entry, but there you go. I'm ducking my head down for the human DRS to get a little bit less drag. Once again, fully flat out through the first corner. Very clean on the exit, and you can see the slipstream. I'm gaining like crazy down the straight, but I'm lifting a little bit because I knew I needed to time my gap. If I caught up too close during this lap, then by the time I reached this corner, I wouldn't be able to do anything. But in any case, no matter how close I was, once again, second lap in a row, there's a yellow flag over here, so I had to back off. But the mentality hasn't changed. I'm still going to try and keep pushing to stay right next to him coming into the final corner. So, sticking right up the inside of the place where I overtake the second place car, getting a few snaps on entry, still doesn't matter because I'm so close to him. You can tell compared to the first lap, the car is so much more up to temperature. I get a nose up the inside, and I do the brake, and I understeer wide a little bit, and I usher him onto the moss. It's still not quite enough, and he keeps the position. Now it's time for me to refocus and try and do what I was planning to do the previous lap before the yellow flag interrupted me. So my idea was to maintain a gap of about 0.3 of a second. Not that I knew exactly how much that was, this is just based on my visual estimation. Now, still under braking, I'm getting so close that we actually make a little bit of contact here. You can see how much better I am through almost every phase of the corner, lifting a hand there to say sorry for bumping him like that. But once again, look at the gap right now. I lifted a little bit on the straight to make sure that my gap to him was optimal, such that with this crazy momentum advantage I have from the exit of the first corner, I would catch up to him in the perfect point over here. He has a poor exit, but I'm still enough alongside that I can hit the brakes here, and once again there is a yellow flag. So I thought, okay, my nose might have been ahead, the stewards might let me get away with that, I'll stay alongside, but no, he managed to carry the speed around the outside. Now we're coming up to a wall of back markers. The first one lets us through, but the second one doesn't really seem to want to. So I try to hang the speed around the outside and use him to box me in. He tries to smash me back, even hits me in the process, my head going flying as a result. He's still there alongside with us, but I have the inside for the upcoming corner. So I try and just do a smooth braking maneuver, usher him wide onto the moss. Now this is not the same as squeezing him wide. I actually left him more than a cart's width on the outside, but he just had no grip out there on that green moss that I had logged during the practice session, like I mentioned earlier. So that's really the benefit of what I was doing. I was really taking a analytical approach to the track, so I knew I could put him out there, having it be a perfectly legal move. And look at massive snap oversteer coming into the last corner. It had got but yeah, like I said, really logging all of that information in my brain of what was happening in the practice session and sort of using that to my advantage in the race. Now I've gotten myself into the lead, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna drive away now. My main focus went back to try and get some visibility back. Another yellow flag, not that it really matters at this point. Slowing down, but overall wasn't relevant to my race. But yeah, regaining visibility, because still I was doing that entire battle with only about 30% visibility. But I realized by now, I think pretty soon, that I was pulling away. Like, I think I have a quick glance back in this corner. Yeah, as you can see, you can't see him. Like, he's not there. I have pulled away. So at this point, I knew the race was really mine to win. Although I wasn't really thinking of that, I just thought, okay, just clean, consistent laps. And what's interesting is that my fastest lap was on lap 3 while I was fighting through traffic. So I was actually not pushing for this entire race. I was just doing, if you say the limit of the maximum I can do is 100%, I was sort of doing for the first 2 laps 98, 98, 100, 100. Then I got the lead, and then I did 95, 95, 95, 95, 95 every single lap after that. And if you see the race results that they showed, this is with the first back marker I was lapping alone. He was so slow I actually bumped him on the straight. But yeah, as you can see, if you see the race results, my average lap time compared to second place was about 7/10 quicker. So that's a significant pace advantage, and it was many seconds quicker than everyone else after that. So yeah, I was sort of in a class of my own this race, and that's really not much else for me to show you guys. I was doing a lot of lapping of back markers, and it was interesting because there were no blue flags shown. They didn't realize that they were back markers. They would just fight me for position. So I had to use all of my racing skill to try and get past them. But to be honest, it wasn't really anything difficult because I was significantly quicker than everyone else here. So yeah, I mean, that was my race to win at this point. So yeah, let's just see what happens on the final lap. So yeah, fast forwarding to the final lap, and pretty much as I said, I pulled away from everyone else. Actually, I had a little bit of a spin towards the end of the race because it had actually started to rain a little bit, but it's not really impactful to my race result as I still had a huge gap to P2, and I think it's just that I think a couple of people unlapped themselves, like 4th and 5th or something like that. But yeah, as you can see on the results sheet, I had lapped pretty much the entire field. This is with, I think, about a minute to go on the timer. So coming across the line for the final time, for some reason we have to do half a lap extra, and it's on the other circuit, other start finish line, that we finally come across the line to take the checkered flag and win our first, get our first race win in our second ever race. So yeah, as you can see around this point, there was a full course yellow, and which is basically a virtual safety car if you watch F1. And then there was also a red flag that came after, because I think there was a pretty large accident. I spoke to the driver afterwards. He was not injured, he was okay. Of course a bit shaken and he was a bit sore, but yeah, red flag and I had to stop. But anyway, yeah, let's cut to what I had to say after the race. Oh, your boy's only gone and fucking won the race. I don't even know what to say, honestly. Like, there was a straight up, like, I qualified P3, sort of. I mean, got into the second split, qualified P3, sort of just chilled for a couple of laps. I overtook second, like, for lap 1 or something like that. Now, I was sitting in P2. I don't know why I'm telling you this story. I can just show you the video, but I was just, like, assessing how he was for a few laps. Pretty clean move, pretty easy move. He wasn't particularly complex to try and overtake. That's a cool car. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, so it wasn't particularly hard to overtake, and I got the job done. And yeah, that was crazy. You know, I apparently lapped all the way up till third place. what a game! What a race, man! Like, and I maintained my fitness through the race. I'm still okay. I can still stand. I can still walk. I can still talk. I'm feeling great. Oh my god! What an improvement from last time, huh? Oh my god! The whole race, and I think I even spun one time. I spun, and like a couple of people unlapped themselves, but at the end I still had a 10-second gap to P2. So see you on the podium, guys. So yeah, pretty dominant performance, and there you go with the podium ceremony. And yeah, I'd like to thank you guys a lot for watching. I think it's been 26 minutes at least with this current edit, and yeah, it's a long time. So I've really enjoyed racing IRL this year, and I've really been enjoying this process of telling how it is to you. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys.